Hi guys, Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you a tutorial that is themed around Twilight in a forest. So what we're going to do first is we're going to be creating a skinner blend, and now the skinner blend consists of black, purple and a colour mix of 3 cobalt to 1 silver, and I'll have that colour recipe in the supplies. And this is all Premo, and you can see that I've put it together in a skinner blend. If you don't know how to do a skinner blend, please see my tutorial on how to do a skinner blend. I will have it linked in the description below the video. Okay, and I'm just going to pop that through the pasta machine and create a skinner blend. Okay, and here is our skinner blend. And so you can see that the pearliness of the cobalt has mixed into the purple and has gone into a nice gradient into the black. So I'm just going to pop that to the side, and I'm going to bring over the donut cutter that I'm going to be using. And this is the number 5 circle donut, the 6 centimeter size one. Okay, and I just want to make sure that it fits nicely on there. Okay, because I want to know whether the skinner blend needs to be shorter or longer. Now the next step is going to be to take a stencil, and I'm going to be using this really nice leaf stencil, and I'm just going to position it. Let's see. I'm going to position it about here. I'm just going to use my roller quickly to press it down into the clay, because I want it nice and stuck in there, like so. Okay, and then you're going to need a little brush and some silver alcohol ink, and this is the mixative type. So let me just zoom you out quickly so you can see what I'm doing, and just give it a shake. We'll open that up, and this is my favourite way to make silver. It just has such a very realistic silver sort of effect. So I'm just going to dab that onto my brush, and I'm going to strategically place it into areas. Now a nice thing about the stencil is you don't have to worry about doing this too quickly, whereas with a silkscreen you would have to hurry, because you could very quickly, the alcohol ink would very quickly dry, and also because this is a mixative, I find that it clogs up the silkscreens quite a bit, whereas with the stencils it won't. It will just require a bit of cleaning. Okay, I'm just painting around the areas that I want it to be. Okay, because I just want the outline of a whole leaf, and then I'll just use the alcohol ink to properly fill in those areas. And now, depending on whether you pressed it down properly onto your clay, you might experience a little bit of the alcohol ink getting under the stencil, but that shouldn't happen too much. I've mostly pressed it down in the middle here where I'm going to be using my cutter. I'm not too worried about the edges. Now a nice thing here is, because you don't have to worry about it clogging up, is you can go over a few times with your alcohol ink, which is necessary to get a really nice solid silver colour. So I'd recommend maybe 2 coats in total. So that would be the first coat, and then you'd go back and you'd paint again, and you can see it's giving you a much more solid colour. So I'll continue to do that until I have a nice solid silver. And there we are. Now once it has dried, you will just gently lift that up and you should end up with a really nice clean imprint. And now you can pop this to the side until you've finished your project to clean it, or you can go and clean it right away, just with some water and some soap. Then just give your area a clean. And now because we've got a texture on here, I want to bring over some paper just so that I can smooth it back down. It's just some plain printing paper, and all you're going to do is you're just going to use your finger to just smooth, like so. And this should get rid of any raised areas. And then you just want to lift that once, and it should leave you with a fairly clean impression. And I just want to make sure I've got rid of all the raised areas. And I can see that I have a little bit of areas where the alcohol ink went over the stencil. I just want to see if I can clean those up using a wet wipe. And I want to be very careful because I don't want to wipe away my original imprint, but I do want to get rid of any of that bits that aren't supposed to be there. There we are. Okay, and now it's not completely flat. I've missed a few areas around here, so I will go back with that piece of paper, but this time a different piece because you don't want to use the same area twice. And I'll just make sure that it is properly burnished and that it doesn't have any raised areas, because we're going to use another stencil, one with stars on it, to put in some stars up here. Okay, and so the next step is to take another stencil, one with little stars on it. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to place that down. I'm going to position it so all the little stars are near the top. I'm just going to press that down. Make sure that I've got a nice bond. And then I'll just use my roller to just gently roll that over. And that will just make sure that the alcohol ink can't get in to the crevices. Then take your alcohol ink again and choose the stars that you want to paint. Generally I go for the small ones. So I like that one. And just paint them in. And then you will want to go over a second time for a second coat. Okay, and I think that's probably enough. So then I'll go back to basically a beginning and just rebrush them. And you'll just want to brush over them until you can't see brush strokes anymore. And it doesn't take much. And just make sure you get into all of those points, because the stars have quite a few sharp points on them. And sometimes the alcohol ink doesn't go in there happily, so you have to kind of brush it in. Okay, and I think that's just about done, so I'll quickly wipe off that brush on a wet wipe. And we will lift. And there we are, we've just got a few stars. And then again, allow that alcohol ink to dry, and then you'll want to just flatten it out. And there we are, we've got a landscape. Let me just lift that up to show you. And you can see there are a few little bumps, but that's not going to make much difference later because we can't sand this, so it's going to have resin over the top. And any bumps that are left will be covered up by the resin. So I'm going to put this to the side and we're going to work on a Mica Shift now. And I've got our second colour recipe, which is 1 pot pearl white to 1 pot silver. And all we're going to do is we're going to take a texture stamp, and I've got my Moon Craters silicone texture stamp here. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to place that down, and I want to choose a nice area. Let's see, I can see from the back. I think I'm going to position it somewhere around here. And now I just want to make sure that it's nice and clean before I start, so you'll just give it a quick wipe down just to make sure that it is nice and clean. Okay, and then I'm going to pop this face down over here, and I'm just going to use this sponge here so that it's not going to stick to my hands. You can also use cornstarch as well, but I want this to be sticky so that we can put a backing on it. So just use your sponge to just press this into the texture, and we're going to need to go in with our fingers to press it in properly, but the sponge will get it in there just enough that it's not going to be moving around when you try to press it in with your fingers. Okay. Now I'm going to go with my fingers and just get into all those little gaps things, just to make sure we get a really good impression. And this is going to basically imitate a moon, so that's why I'm going with this texture. But again, you can use any stencils, any textures you want, but because this is a themed project, I am using rather specific supplies. Okay, now I'll check on the back, and you can see through the back here if you've got a good imprint or not. And then I'm just going to lift, and you can see it has that really nice moon sort of a texture. And you can just leave it like that if you want, but I want to create a mica shift, so I'm just gently going to press down like so. And I'm just going to bring over a flexible blade, and I recommend wiping off the blade with some wet wipes because it will just make it more slick and sharp. And just gently start shaving away the raised areas, and don't go too deep. And it'll create somewhat of a moon-like mica shift. Okay, and here is how it looks. So now we're going to grab another piece of paper, and we're going to just burnish this flat as well. And just when I forgot to mention, when you're burnishing that other piece with the alcohol ink, you want to be careful when you're burnishing that, because the alcohol ink can smudge if your paper's moving around a lot. So just be a little bit more careful when burnishing that one. Whereas this one you don't have to worry about it. Alternatively, you could use silver paint instead of the alcohol ink. That wouldn't smudge as much, but I just find that it doesn't give as nice a silver. And mica powder isn't really an option because you're going to be manipulating it, and mica powder smudges for no reason whatsoever. Okay, there we go. You can see it gives quite a nice mica shift. And now we're going to be using the same circle cutter that we're using here. And now, because this basically we can just take and transfer it back into, it's basically one colour. I'm not going to worry about using a separate circle cutter. It'll be easier to just use the donut cutter here and choose a spot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some of that leftover metallic clay, and I'm just going to trim this to get rid of these edges, because we only need a small amount. So you can see that will fit it quite nicely. And I'm just going to roll this out to about 0.8 millimeters thick, and then together that will probably make it around 1.5 millimeters, these two together, which is about the thickness of our other sheet. So I'll just smooth that on top. And then I'm going to grab this and I'm going to choose a nice section. I think I like here best. And I'm going to cut that down, and just make sure you press nicely in the middle there, and just to give it an extra sharp cut, you can give it a twist as well. And then this we're not going to use, so you can just take that and put that away. And now I'm going to be using this cute little owl stamp here. You can see the image there. And I just want to work out where I want to press it. About there. And I'm going to bring over some black stays on ink. And just let me bring that over so you can see. And all I'm going to do is I'm just gently going to press this to the surface. You don't want to press too hard. Just make sure that you get a nice cover of ink on there, because you don't want a heavy amount. And you should be able to see the shiny parts. That's where the ink is. So just make sure that the whole thing is shiny. Okay, and then I'm just going to make sure that I'm positioning it in the right spot. Just pressing lightly, then I will lift straight up. Okay, and that one didn't come out as clean as I would like it. I generally have to do a few times before I get it as nice as I would like it. So just quickly take a wet wipe and a bit of isopropyl alcohol, not ink, and just give it a wipe. And if you do that fairly quickly after you've stamped it, you should be able to very easily remove that ink. And you can give it another try. Just wait for that to dry and give your stamp a clean as well. And I'll do that a few times, or at least I hope not a few times. I'll try it one more time and hopefully I'll get it right that time. But that's just a trick that I wanted to show you because it's very easy to make a mistake. So I'll continue doing that until I get the perfect imprint. And there we are. I'm pretty happy with that imprint. So just quickly clean off your stamp. The stays on ink will stain it though, but it won't transfer to the next project. And then you want to give that a little bit of time to dry, and you shouldn't be able to see any shiny spots once it is dry. And so I'm just going to pick this up gently and move that to the side, and I will bring over this and my cutter, and I want to choose the perfect spot. So I'm thinking probably about here is a good spot, because you get some of the silver at the bottom and at the top. Yeah, about there. Okay, then give it a good press down. Give it a spin to make sure that it's nice and clean. Lift that up and out of the way. And I'm also going to lift that out the way using this tissue blade. And you can see if I rub on that, it's going to smear a bit. So you just want to be a little careful when working with this because it can still smear. And then I want to take my little owl, and before I put it in here, I'm just going to use a piece of paper quickly to just gently burnish over the top, and this will remove any excess ink that has not dried yet. And here you can see that there was a bit of ink there. I'll move to a different area, burnish again. A little bit of ink, but that should have dried it off properly by now. So now I'll just grab that. Just clean up that edge there. And I want to position it so that the owl is facing forward. Okay. And then I'm just gently going to press along the sides with my finger just to get it to fit into place. Like so. Okay. And then I want to make a border to go around it. Okay, so I know what I want to do as a border, but I need this to be set first. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a piece of plain printing paper, and I'm just going to give this a very gentle burnish just to get rid of fingerprints. I'm not pressing that hard at all, so I'll be very careful not to distort it. And then I'm going to you can either put this into the oven for about 15 minutes to set it up, or you can use a heat gun, and I'm using an Ozito heat gun just to set it up. Okay, and that should have set it up. Now you just want to gently press, and it should be fairly firm under your finger, and then you just want to let that cool before you do anything, and then once it's cool I'm going to lift it off the tile. Alright, so here it is, and you can see the back is still a bit raw, and so I'm going to bring over our backing, which is going to be black, and I'm going to roll it out on my thinnest setting. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stretch that out nice and thin, and I'm going to bring over the cutter that matches the outside of the donut, which is the smallest cutter in my maxi circle cutter set, or otherwise a 6 centimeter in diameter circle cutter. Just cut out a piece of black, quickly clean up a bit, bring this over, flip, now this isn't going to fit exactly because I've stretched it a bit, but that's fine. I'm just going to stretch it out over the back. Like so. And then I'll just press that down. Okay, and then I'm going to bring over a piece of sandpaper to texture it. Okay, and I'm just going to hold this with a sponge while I do this so that I can move around without getting fingerprints on the texture. Okay, and that should give you a nicely textured back. And I'm going to just turn this around, and I'm going to pop it on a piece of paper. And then use a craft knife to just smooth away the outside. Like so. Easy. And then you can remove that. and then just go around with your finger and smooth these edges, and we'll give the edge another smear later on, but for now that is what your backing should look like. Now I'm going to pop that to the side and bring over our silver clay that we used to create the Mica Shift, and you can see that I've got it in a nice long sheet, and it is about 1 millimeter thick. I'll just trim up this end, and I only need a piece that is about a blade's length. Okay, I'll just move that out of the way. So, pick this up, and then I want you to just start twisting. And just be careful because you can break this while you're doing it, so just go slowly with this. And with the metallic clay, it's going to give you a really nice appearance. Okay, and then just continue twisting by rolling it gently on the tile. And remember to take care of the ends as well. And then just roll to smooth it out. And then twist again. And then roll one more time. Okay. Now we're ready to begin. So all you're going to do is you're going to trim away the side edges because they never look very good. Pop that onto the piece of paper here. And I'm going to bring over some bacon bond, and what I want to do is I want to put the bacon bond around the edge here so that this is going to stick. And the reason I did cure this beforehand is because if you do mess this up, you can very easily remove the mistake. I'm just waiting for this bacon bond to come down. Okay, then I'm just going to drag a little bit around the edge here. Okay, and then just using my finger, I'm going to wipe away that excess so that it's just basically in the recesses. And because you've cured this, the alcohol ink should not smudge anymore as well, so you can work without worrying about that. Right, then you'll take one end of this, and I want you to gently curve it into a spiral. Like so. And I want the spiral to sit in the middle here, like that. And then I'm gonna pop this around the edge, like so. And it can take a little bit of fiddling to get it right. And then I'm just going to chop off the end here. And this is the fiddly bit. I want you to curve that into a spiral as well. And I might use my craft knife to help with that. To help position it in the right spot. I'm just going to trim this again because it's got too much there. I'm not liking how much there was there. Okay, and that is your outside. And now just to make sure that they stick to one another, grab your bacon bond again and just touch a little bit of liquid clay between them, like so. And then you can just use a blade to just gently distribute that. And that's translucent bacon bond, so it won't show up. Okay, then I want you to make another piece similar to this. And what we're going to do is we're going to put that around the outside here. And this time I've cut the strip a bit thicker, so when we do the twists it will look a little different. And then you'll just go down and twist it. And this one's going to be a little harder to twist, but it will do it. And this is going to be our outside. Like so. Okay. Then take this. I want you to wrap it around. Oops. Your piece, like so. Then overlap. Take your blade and give it a cut. And remove those excess little bits. Just smooth out that seam. And there we are. I'm quite happy with that. And now I just want to see how this looks if I were to remove that, or if I were to remove that. Just making sure that I'm happy with it before I bake it. Maybe I want to move this down this way a little bit. Move this up here a bit. I'll just mess with that and see how I like it. This one I still think is a little long, so I'm just going to trim it again. There we are, I like that better. Okay, now I'm going to pop this in the oven for a full hour at Premo's recommended temperature. And what I'm going to do before I do that though is I'm just going to take this, which should be joined together, out of the way. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick this up and I'm going to use some bacon bond around the edge. And that will just make sure that it sticks. Okay. Then I'll just use my finger to quickly smooth that, get rid of a lot of the excess. It's just supposed to provide a little bit of a sticky grip for the twisted snakes, so you don't want a whole bunch there. Okay. There we go. Then grab this again and it should fit perfectly around. and then just press against the edges so that it is stuck. Make sure that it's touching the bottom of your piece. And there we are. I'm now going to go pop that in the oven at Premo's recommended temperature for a full hour. Okay, so this is out of the oven, and you can see that the colours have darkened a bit, which is completely normal, and you can see the back is nice and neat. So now what we want to do for the back is you want to establish where the middle is and how we want it to hang. I want it to hang just like that, so I'm just going to flip that over. Okay, and then we're going to be creating some bales. So I've got some nice black clay here, and I've got a nice thick straw too. So you can take that black clay and trim at the top, and also trim along the sides like so. Then take your straw, wrap your black around and trim. And then I want this to smooth together so that we don't have a seam. Like so. Okay, then I'll just quickly smooth off the tile, and I'm going to give this a quick roll. Smooth it out. And I'm just going to give it a brush over so that we get rid of fingerprints as well. Right, then grab your blade, and I want you to trim the ends like so. Then I'm going to create a bale. I'm going to basically cut out 3 pieces. Like so. Okay. And then I want to remove the excess clay that I can. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a heat gun to set this. So I've got the heat gun, and I'm just going to set this. If you don't have a heat gun, you can pop it in the oven. And I'll continue doing that for probably another minute or so. Okay, then once it's cooled down, you should be able to remove them. There we go. And they'll be nice and neat. Then we'll grab our back and establish the front. Again, just making sure that I've got it in the right spot. Okay. Then I'm going to bring over some more bacon bond. And what I want is I want these ones to sit. Oops. I want them to sit like this, and then have that at the back like that. So just roughly like that. And I'm just going to take my bacon bond and I'm going to actually put it where I would like these to sit. I'm going to put on this instead. That's the one. Then I'll do the other. And last one. Okay. Gonna pop this at the bottom, like so. And I'm gonna pop these along the side, like so. And then just press down so that they're sitting nice and clean against your pendant. And I'm just going to take some more bacon bond and I'm just going to squirt a little bit more on. I might have to move it a bit to get that in there. And this is translucent, so you don't have to worry about it. But we just want to make sure that that's secure. Okay, I'll do that on the other side. I'll roll that forward a bit. And it will go translucent, so you don't have to worry about it. Pretty sure I said that before, but I just want to mention it again. Okay. Then, because they are baked, you can reposition them to your liking. Okay, and just make sure that is the front. Oops. Okay. And then I'll pop these back in the oven for a full hour at Premo's recommended temperature. Okay, and here it is now that it is out of the oven. So you can see this stands basically even. And so now what we want to do is we want to put resin on it. So I've got a resin mat right here. I'm just going to pop this down on the resin mat. And now we're probably going to have to do a few layers because we don't want it spilling down into the recesses over here. I just want it on the top part here. So I'm going to be using magic gloss, but we are going to have to probably do about 2 layers at least. So I'm just squeezing that resin on. Okay, and we'll let that fill on its own. And just use a toothpick to gently get it to go into the spot where it's supposed to go. Okay, and we'll stick to that. Then I want to do it around the edge here as well. Now, the nice thing about magic gloss over normal resin is that it holds its surface tension quite well, and so it's not as likely to spill over the edge as other resin, which is good for a project like this where we probably are going to have a spill or two if we don't go slow enough. So all I want you to do is put a little bit on and then just spread it out to the edge. And you will see that the resin will pull away. That's completely normal. At least for this brand anyway. This is why I'm saying we're going to have to do a few layers. You're going to need to be patient if you want to get the best effect. And just pull it out to the edges. And you can see how beautiful that already looks. And another reason we're probably going to need to do another layer is because we've got quite a high board over here that I want to put under resin. And so that's going to need a bit of resin on it. But I don't want to put too much resin on here at any one time, because then you get spills. And I think I can add just a little bit more around this end. And use the toothpick to pop bubbles if you can. Okay, and then I'll mess with it a little bit more, but this is basically what the first layer is going to look like, and then I'm going to put a second layer over it. And now the last thing I want you to do is I just want you to take this resin and I want you to just brush it over the surface of your border. You should have enough resin to do that. And just make sure there's no bubbles. There's one over there. I want you to take those bubbles and either pop them or scoop them out. And then I'm going to pop this in the UV lamp for probably about 5 minutes so that it cures a bit, and then we'll put another layer on top. Okay, and here it is so far. It's still a little soft, so if I touch it, it does feel soft, but it is curing on the top. And we can see it, we have a few blank spots like over here, and basically what it's done by doing this resin at the moment is it's evened this out, because this one side is sloping down a little bit further than this one, so the resin tends to like to go this side. So if you're having trouble with that, do one coat of resin, let it settle completely, don't force it into places where it just doesn't want to go, cure it, and then we will put another layer of resin on, and this time it will be going onto a nice even surface. So I should be able to get a nice layer of resin. And you can see that it is spreading evenly now. It's not spreading all to one side, which is what we're aiming for. So I'm just starting in the middle here. And then I'm letting it spread out. And you should be able to get a significantly nice dome on this. And just make sure to get all in those spots, and it should flatten out that border that you have around your little moon. And then I will cure this for probably about half an hour under the UV lamp. And because Magic Gloss holds its surface tension so nicely, I'm not too worried about spills at all. You really have to pour too much resin on to get spills. And it'll create a really beautiful dome. Okay, there we are. Then I will just scoop out or try to pop that little bubble there. There we go. And I'm just going to spin it around, see if I can see any spots that are at risk of drips. See any spots that might need me to stretch it out a little bit more. And just in general, make sure that it's all looking good. Okay, and then I'll pop that into the UV lamp. Okay, so here it is out of the UV lamp, and I ultimately had to give it around 3 coats. And you can see how beautiful the metallic is over here. And we did get some spills, so you can see that it has gone around the edges here. And so if you do end up with spills, just let it drip, as you can see here. And then when it is in the UV lamp, just take a skewer or a toothpick and just run it along the edge here until you feel the resin starting to set up, and you'll end up with something similar to this. And then you'll need to cure the top and then pop it on its back and then cure the back as well. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab some UV resin, and I'm just going to apply it to the back in a nice thin layer. So I'm just going to paint it all around. And then I'm just going to use a brush to brush over the surface so that we can't see those other drips anymore. Like so. And then you'll need to put that into the UV lamp for around another 25 minutes. And just make sure you give it a good brush. And if you don't have any drips, this is not necessary. But if you do have drips, you need to hide them by doing this. And this does a pretty good job of getting rid of everything. And now once you've done an initial coat, you'll need to put a little bit more on, just so that you don't have any pulling away. Just go around and distribute that evenly. And then I'll pop that in the UV lamp again. And you can paint these if you want as well. You can see it will make it much darker. No need for sanding now. And then when this is cured, I will then get onto the string, which is fairly simple, but it will just add that last little touch that this needs. Just make sure you get all of this covered in resin so that it's nice and smooth. Okay, and here is out of the UV lamp. And that's going to still be a little bit sticky to the touch, and that's because it just simply needs to air dry a bit. So don't wear this for another little while, for another hour or so, but as far as stringing goes, we can begin now. So I've got some bug tail, well not bug's tail, rat's tail here actually, cord, and I've got 3 long pieces, and it's supposed to be able to go over your head, so you can see here how nice and long it is. So I'm going to start at one end and thread that through here. Okay, and I'll bring over the other end. That through, and this can be a little tricky. So give yourself some room to work. And it should fit through, but you might need to just push it a little bit. There we are. All through. Okay. Then, now that you have these through, don't worry about getting them all even yet. We want to take each one, and I've got some spacer beads here. And I'm going to pop a spacer bead on one and just tie off the end at one point. Give it a nice tight pull, like so. And then that will just float around on the end like that. And I'll do the same for the others. Okay, and then when I am done, I just give the ends a quick little snip to give them a little tail. Okay, and and then just pull on this, and there is your pendant. And then you can pull on this to tighten the necklace, as you can see, or you can pull back to open the necklace. Very easy, very effective, and creates a really pretty versatile pendant. And so I do hope that you enjoyed that tutorial. I certainly did. I love the theme around it. It's really quite a cute pendant with that little owl in the center there. So I hope you enjoyed it, and if you would like more complex tutorials like this, please do check out my Patreon page on Patreon. I do many tutorials very similar to this, with lots of different techniques and well thought out designs every single month, so please do check that out. And for some of the tools that I have shown in this week's tutorial, please do have a look at my Etsy shop, Jessama Design, and as always, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.